Well, this is a little bit of a historical moment here at the Danville Museum today because this is our first Voices series. It came to my attention that, you know, we have the Civil Rights Exhibition, we have Camila Williams, we've got a lot of things going on, but what we don't have is we don't have a group coming together on an annual basis to talk about it. And so I'm thinking that the best way to get around that is to create a program called Voices and to include the voices that we need to hear and to repeat the voices that we need to hear every year. So I am going to charge everybody in this group at this table to please invite people to write to me if they want to be part of the Voices series for next year. Because what we're going to do is another panel discussion, another movie. Karen, we've got a year.
All right. I'm on it.
Just an open invitation to videographers, photographers, artists. We're going to have a community exhibition next month, and it will focus both on women and on Black history. Black History Month was this month, but we want to make sure that we bring groups together for conversations, and this will be our first community exhibition after not having anything for 2 years, so people are ready to show their artwork. There are flyers on the back table, so please make sure that you spread the word and let everybody know. On March 13th is when we'll be opening the exhibition here in the auditorium, so come on out and take part. Cedric Hairston has kindly given us many, many wonderful works from the elementary and the middle school and the high school in Pennsylvania County. So we will have a children's edition of artwork, and it's amazing. Felice, where's Felice? Is she in the room? She and I judged an art competition in Chatham, and a lot of that work will be coming here. The children's work are amazing, just amazing, and I can't wait to see the adults' work. So we look forward to that very much. Without more to do, I think by this time, after seeing Karen's video and after seeing the speeches, we know who we're dealing with on this panel. So I am just going to head straight into the panel discussion with our first question. So the way we're going to do this is I'm going to ask the question, and hopefully we can get each panelist to respond. We will start with Tommy Bennett, work our way down to Gail Brakely, and Sherman Saunders, and then Karen Williamson. And the first question is, to our panelists, how does Karen's video illustrate the issues of the Civil Rights Exhibition movement? Tommy.
Number one, I'd like to say thank you for inviting me. It was one of the best. I've seen each person were different, but they had a legacy and an outlook for this city. And the city of Danville, they had touched each one of them in a different way. From education to fashion, and to even making a person feel welcome to this city. It was one of the best short films I've seen in a long time, especially talking about our city in Pennsylvania County, and it just brought a lot to me.
Thank you.
Elspeth and guests, thank you all. I was impressed with the very title of Karen's film, The Movement. Particularly when I think about movement, of course there is the movement in space, the physical movement, but in the film, there clearly were examples of evidence of a movement of spirit and a movement of thought. And as you said, Tommy, you could see that in Casey's references to fashion and art. You could see that in Darren's conversation about the movement for people toward home ownership. You could see that as Shanique talked about youth. So the idea of movement speaks to this movement of thought and spirit and passion. And that's what, to me, makes the civil rights movement such a powerful movement. Yes, we did do great things, and we should for people. But any movement has to begin first here and here. It has to begin in the heart and in the head. And the civil rights movement was such. And we see evidence of that as we listen to those people in the video, and I know I was in there too, but as we listen to people share who they were, who they are, you could sense that movement of spirit that is bound and determined to change people. So that was really impressive to me about your film, Karen.
Thank you.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to say I'm real pleased that my bride is here. Raise your hand here. Glad she's here. And also Councilman.
Also a board member. She's also a board member.
Also a board member, yes, absolutely. And also Councilman Brian Hood is here as well. Raise your hand, sir. Thank you for coming. Really appreciate that. To your question, it talked a lot about the people who came before us that allowed us to say what we said. So in essence, we really told their story, and it was still rough. And in all candor, it's still rough. We still have some more work to do. But it was very educational, very informative, and I really enjoyed it. Just I'm watching for the very first time. But to me, it was an honor to tell the story of those who came before us and to allow us to have some experiences that they did not have. Thank you.
Aaron, what are your comments on your film and the civil rights exhibition downstairs?
Well, when you and I had that conversation about, well, you know, what do you want to do for your project? Ultimately, this was not what I had in mind. What I had in mind was to do a documentary film on the up-and-coming leaders here in Danville. And I handpicked, with the exception of maybe one person, but basically I handpicked each and every person that was in the film. And I knew it was an ambitious project, but I also knew that their voices needed and like you said, need to be told and retold, which is part of the motto for Caswell History Speaks. You capture the story, you preserve the story, you tell the story, and you retell it, and retell it, and retell it. And seeing that each of the 9 people that were in the film be their authentic selves, and how it ties into the civil rights, is that, yeah, we have made some progress here in Danville. Actually, I think we've made a lot of progress in Danville that allows these leaders, these current leaders, to be the leaders that they are, and that it is looking back on you, Tommy, and you, Gail, and especially you, Mr. Saunders, it's wonderful to see the progress that we have made, but also reflecting back, there's still a whole lot of work that needs to be done. And we might as well start now. So how does the film fit in with the civil rights? It's a film that shows progress, but it also shows that, okay, this is where we are now. Let's keep that momentum going.
It's a work in
Yes.
progress.
Yes.
And for those who don't know, some of the persons in the film, like Kelly Cunningham's grandfather, cleaned the courthouse. Mr. Mack.
Okay.
He saw a lot during the civil rights movement. He was the person who would see all the beatings. He knew who came in and out of the jails. He saw that he had to clean the white water fountain down next to, further down the hall was the black water fountain. And then you had the daughter-in-law of the first black race car driver.
Shanique Scott.
Shanique, yeah, Scott. You touched with all of those persons. And then you had Fred Motley, who had a long history of stories and dance. And then with Gail Brinkley, coming from the county, and mother and father, I can't go on the table, but all of the folks that you've chosen, they're folks that dealt with the civil rights background.
And see, and I didn't know that. All that I know is that, and evidently, that history, that background, knowing that now, it still resonates in their legacies, even with Carice Luck.
Yes.
It goes from generation to generation.
The Luck family out of Camp Grove, still there and still doing things.
And may I add one? We all know about segregation. Black school, white school. I graduated from an all-black school before integration, okay? Today, because of the work that people before us did, the schools are now integrated. And one of the people in your film is Crystal Cobb, the school board chairwoman.
Yes.
That ain't history, I don't know what it is.
And I actually went to Dan River High School way back in late 1960s when it was not an integrated school per se. But my mom and dad were insistent. It was called the Freedom of Choice Act at that time. And Brown versus the Board of Education had insisted that schools are integrated. However, Virginia came up with this Freedom of Choice Act. And as such, some African American families chose to send their children to Dan River or Chatham or whatever, and my folks were among those who did. So I went to Dan River along with maybe 24 other African American young people. And while I don't think of that as history, I know it's my history.
Yeah.
And I know it has played a part in shaping me into the person I am. But I have to say that my parents were also the influential ones. They were the trailblazers. People say, oh, you went to Dan River in 1968. Well, my parents were the heroes because they insisted that I go to Dan River in 1968. So again, it's a story. And as you said, Karen, it's not just the telling the story, it's the retelling of the story that marks it indelibly in our minds and in our spirits,
Yes.
so that we can teach this not just to our children, but to all children, so that everybody knows the history and embraces it, good, bad, and ugly. It's the history nonetheless, and it shaped all of us. So that's an important piece of that.
I'd like to add another one. Gail keep, bringing all of them up. In the sense of what we learned from our history, in the sense of what stuck with some of us and caused us to try to be who we are today. And Tommy, you have a wonderful story, a wonderful story. We talk about education. And my mother and father dropped out of school in the 7th grade because they were sharecroppers. But guess what? My brother and I did graduate high school, grades 1 through 12. My mother and or my father, one of the two or both, went to every PTA meeting for 12 years. Did not miss a parent and teacher association meeting because they wanted my brother and me to make sure that we get the education that they couldn't get, and they did not want us to be sharecroppers like they were, and wanted us to know you can learn and be successful too. Thank you, Gail.
Well, that first question went far. Thank you. That was lovely. Here's the second question.
Excuse me, can I interrupt you?
Yes.
Everything you just said needs to be on blast for first graders so that they can know just the story you just told. And I mean all first graders, because they're so left out of all of this, and it's so critical to black, white, green, red, I don't care who it is. It shapes the town. It shapes the town.
We've got lots of work to do. We really do. We have an intern program here at the museum, and I took 2 young ladies over to the press conference for the Grasti state marker that's on the other side, and they hadn't heard of segregation. So these were interns, museum interns. So I do feel, that's why we have an internship program. So in every way, we try to disclose things and bring people in. I'm working with the Goodwill of the Valleys right now, and with the Institute for Learning, Learning and Research as well, to try to bring in as many public school students as possible for our internship program, so that they can learn. Thank you for that comment. All right, what would you choose as a topic that can be seen in Karen's video and in the videos released on February 1st, which is the speaker videos, interviewing Sherman Saunders, Gail Brakely, and Tommy Bennett? What is the common thread that runs through all these narratives? Tommy?
To me, may I?
Go ahead.
To me, people remembering their immediate heritage, people who remember family, people who remember people in the community who are also influential. I think Tommy has a tape recorder in his head, because it's amazing how he comes with names up. I think that was the central thing. Most of us are talking about people who came before us, and then we start talking about who we are because of the people who came before us. And that's why we just need to continue to pass that on, especially now. And that's a whole nother question, okay? Especially now. But the whole thing was, we had parents who worked hard, who were trying to make a difference, trying to make a change, not just for us, but for everybody.
Yeah.
And it was one thing that was true in the black community, especially on this panel. Everybody, we were all God-fearing people.
Yes.
People of faith. Because you gotta have faith to do what we're trying to do, and God knows our ancestors had to have faith to do what they did. I'll stop there.
Well, when you ask about a topic, I thought an appropriate topic for everything other than your topic would be a legacy of leadership. Because regardless of who was on that screen at that particular time, each of those persons is a leader in his or her own right. It might not look the same, but you saw in the video, I think Casey was probably the youngest, either Casey or the McDonald young lady. They were probably the youngest. He was the oldest one, I know. So there was a wide range of ages there and a wide range of interest and abilities. So again, each one was exhibiting some aspect of leadership. And then a common theme that seemed to run through it all was a willingness to embrace their passion. Whatever your passion is, and that's something else that you spoke about, little children. Even little children have passion. We need to tap into their passion, because that's what's going to drive any positive change, any change in general is passion. So just a willingness to embrace passion, and a person's identity. And when we get to the third question, I will want to talk a bit about that, because I'll do it now since I'm at it. But one thing that Danville really needs to do, and that all communities need to do, is to embrace differences. And I just don't mean color differences and gender differences, but just differences in opinion and thought. When we open ourselves to hear and feel other people's identities and their passions, it just rubs off on us and improves us, so that we can do a better, greater work for the common good. And we just need to look at underserved communities. I think about people who have different learning abilities and styles, those who are visually impaired. Surely, they're part of this community. What were their thoughts? People who have physical modality problems, how did they experience the civil rights movement or any change? So again, as we move forward, we need to start embracing all differences and different abilities, so that we can become who we're destined to become.
Yes. And also, Elizabeth, I watching myself, when I've really got a focus, I've seen them, but when I was watching, I looked in the background, and all three persons in the background was in my life growing up. Which the first one was James Peters, who owned the funeral home in our community. But his sons, all of us played in the funeral home and back and forth. It was right there on South Main Street. Then the second picture was my kindergarten teacher, which was Mrs. Pitchback. And that was before Dmfah City Schools even had kindergartens. Kindergartens was private, or they were connected through Parks and Rec. And we had a one-room kindergarten, which was on a place called Poorhouse Hill, was in Danville. Yeah, and Miss Pitchback was a civil rights leader. We were 4 or 5 years old. We didn't know why she would bring us all together, talk to us, huddle us together. And I was like, when I saw all those pictures in the background, then the third picture was Bishop Campbell. And I was like, all of these folks have played a part in my life. And when I just looked in that background, that is just enough right there that would tell you to tell people to come in. And then Mr. Peters also was the chair of the Dmfah Voters League. He chaired that until the day he died, of the Voters League. So it was, just like I said, we were helping people to vote, and we weren't even old enough to vote. But we were.
But you definitely got the sense that voting was important from all of what you saw.
Well, if we couldn't vote, we couldn't elect people like Sherman.
I appreciate that. You know, raise hand again, Councilman Hood. That's history right there as well, okay? So we have to get a chance to talk to this gentleman too, because he understands this. I think
Are you nominating him for the next year's Voices?
I'm sorry?
Are you nominating him for
Oh,
next year's
absolutely,
Voices?
I'm nominating him for the next year, of course. Absolutely, I am.
But I'm nominating myself for the next film.
All right, give me your information.
And I think the other, you know, part of the theme is, as has just been said, you know, people of faith and people of determination. But the movement was not all black. There were white people in the movement too.
Yeah.
Okay? Going back to the founding W.E.B. Du Bois, you know, the founding WCP. A white lady and some white men and some black people got together and formed the NAACP. Okay, Tommy talked about Mr. Jim Peters, the funeral home director, owner. June 10th, everybody heard about that. I marched on June 10th, okay, that same day. And a lot of people, as Tommy said, and as may I call you Gail?
Please do.
As Gail said, a lot of people were hurt, okay, beat up, washed down the street, and all of that, all right? And they went to the only black hospital in Danville, Winslow Hospital. Winslow Hospital did not have enough room for everybody to come into the hospital to be treated after being beaten. So many of them had to lay on the ground outside the side of the hospital, okay, till they can be treated. And we didn't have a lot of black Dr. Harvey, we had some black doctors, but we didn't have that many. So some white doctors, MD, in Danville, came over to Winslow Hospital, the black hospital, and helped the people who got beaten up on June the 10th. And because a lot of the white doctors came to help, a lot of their white patients boycotted them. Because you went and helped them, we're not coming to you anymore. And some doctors had to move their practice out of Danville because they weren't making them keep the practice going. And so it's you know, we have to look at the whole picture, you know, and we have a right, you know, to be disappointed, but we also have that duty to make sure that this don't happen to anybody else as best we can. And I'm just speaking for Sherman, but you know, again, all the slavery, all the songs, you know, singing the black spirituals in code to the slaves, you know, so they can start doing things, steal away. That means get out of here, okay? You know, Harriet Tubman, so on and so forth, all kind of code. So people found all kind of ways to do this. And let me share just one more story for now. That is, in '63, and they were called Freedom Riders. And they had some buses riding all through the South, mostly white people, marching with us black people, okay? And some of the white people were arrested too for marching with black people. One person was in college, her mother was a Freedom Rider, came to Danville and got arrested. Her daughter, white, in college, heard about it, got her friends together, got a bus, and came to Danville to help the movement, okay? Now, because they were white and the hotels heard they were coming in to help the black movement, not a single hotel would let them stay in that hotel, okay? So, they went to High Street Baptist Church, where they slept overnight in High Street Baptist Church, because the white hotel would let them there because they were helping people look like me, all right? That lady today, as we speak, this white lady today, as we speak, is chairman of the State Senate Finance Committee, in charge of all the money in the state of Virginia. You tell me God ain't good. I'll stop for now.
That's wonderful.
So that's the daughter who's over the state finance? It's the daughter who's over the
Yes,
state
yes ma'am,
finance?
yes ma'am, yes ma'am, yes
But
ma'am.
those are the first grade stories, because it's everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of people even feel, and they leave this part out, Sherman, that even in this city and in Pennsylvania County, there were black ministers who didn't accept Martin Luther King coming in. They did not want him at their church.
True.
That's why everything you hear was done out of all the churches in Danville. Why was everything at High Street? Because High Street opened their doors. A lot of black churches were afraid and they were threatened. So they would not open their doors.
And there was dissent as well. So, you know, if you think about Doyle Thomas, and he was more of a moderate, right?
Yes.
Yes.
And he got
Yes.
pushback because of that.
Yeah, and he was NAACP president for 43 years.
Right. Right.
So he was.
Yeah. No, there are many, many stories.
So many.
All right. Are we ready for the third question? Looking forward, what needs to be addressed? What is the work that still needs our focused attention as we look towards 2023 and beyond? And what legacies do we still need to build? Coming back to Karen's question, what do you want your legacy to be? Because I think that is a very important question. What do we want our legacies here in Danville to be? Where are we going? What do we want for Danville specifically? And for ourselves in Danville specifically?
Let me talk about walking across the Elmer Pettis Bridge. Okay, I would like for mine and Danville legacy to be bridge builders, bringing people together. And God, if you look at January the 6th, I'm sorry?
That's a tough nut to crack.
Well,
It's worth
Yeah,
it.
but
well,
you gotta start somewhere because I
freedom was
actually-
also tough nut to crack.
Absolutely.
I
But we
agree.
had to get in
I'm
there.
upset with you because one of the things that I said when I moved back to this area was that I personally want to be a bridge. And what form that takes, for me, it's the arts. The arts is what I'm going to use as that bridge between whatever it is to whatever it shall be, or whatever it is going to be. So with
There's a
Sue,
lot you can do with poetry.
exactly, there's
With the
the
fine
arts.
arts, with installation work, there's a lot you can do to mediate
Yeah.
and be that bridge.
I agree, because that's one of the
Storytelling.
things that Sue and I have had a lengthy conversation about, using the arts. Because from what I have seen, the arts is a way, music, films. It's a soft and easy way of building a bridge between communities.
And
And
you know,
it lasts. If it's repeated, it lasts.
Exactly.
and if we're going to, and we are, if we're going to change the trajectory for Danville, the start is right here in this museum.
Correct.
That the movement,
Yeah, art and
the
history.
Camilla Williams display, just the museum and its position, the position that it's taking on civil rights and community is on the right road to changing the trajectory again for Danville. We just need to put our hands to the plow and not look back, other than to learn
Right.
and move forward.
And even just yesterday, I was so happy. Never in the history of Danville to have the NAACP and the Danville Police Department to do a march together from High Street to the courthouse steps.
Did you have a lot of people?
A lot of people. And to see the picture of the demonstrators, Mary Barnes had a picture of the demonstrators of Sherman and them back in the 60s. And then she posted against the picture yesterday of all the people that were there. But the picture yesterday, the picture where Sherman and them were on, they were protesting and being beat up by police officers. Yesterday, the pictures where people are coming together,
Yeah.
hand in hand. The police is working with us. And we got to see so many officers of color where you didn't see it then.
That's right.
That, it just brought tears to my eyes yesterday at that courthouse steps, just to see how everything is pulling together. And people are saying, when we got department heads like Chief Booth and Social Service, Mr. Moody, we got our city manager and our assistant city manager, Earl, everybody is pulling in the same direction. We're not pulling apart. And that's the part that I'm loving. You see, folks are coming together. Sure, you got some bumps in the road. Sure, we got one Confederate flag that came down at the end of Martin Luther King Bridge. So we got about 20 more to go. But still, it's one less that we have to fight for. Sure, we still got Woodrow Wilson, big name on the school, but that's another hurdle we'll have to fight. But we're getting there. But even on the agenda for next month, Stonewall Jackson hopefully will resume the Camp Grove Community Center.
And we've got a new Monopoly game.
We got a new Monopoly game with the black folks on the game. I was like, I was so excited about the game.
Yeah.
And I opened it up and I said, something is wrong with this game. There's nothing on here that is of color that I recognize. There are no black restaurants, no Asian, no nothing. I know we all do and participate all over the city. So when I called the owner of the Monopoly board, he was like, when I came to Danville, this is what I got. And I was like, who did you talk to? So he pulled the game off the market at Walmart, redid the game, sent the game back out to us. And now we got Ruby Archie on the game, library. We got the M.A. Bridge on the game. We got a Taste of Soul on Soul Food Restaurant on the bridge. I was like, okay, now we're getting somewhere.
Now, every time that game is repeated, right, it's going to be repeated in a specific way.
Yes.
That's wonderful.
Yes.
You know, and to add to the progress that we're making, and to talk a little bit, to show a little bit about progress that we need to make. Okay, Selma, Alabama wasn't in Danville, but Danville had some of the same kind of problem, okay?
Right.
And throughout the South, it was there, and throughout the South, things have changed now. We don't even have time to have roll call. You know, I don't know a person over 10 years old haven't heard the name John Lewis, okay? And he came to Danville, and he taught us a few things, and he taught us how to lay on the ground and ball up when you're getting beaten, you know. And he started a SNCC chapter, NCC, Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. He started one of those. So fast forward and then back off. You know, George Floyd wasn't in Danville. You know, the Black Lives Matter movement is huge throughout this country. And if you look at the members, they're black, white, Asian, like some people, like some people that look like everybody God made. That's a good thing, all right? Coming together, wow, marching for the same cause. Tommy just talked about yesterday. Boy, tears to my eyes too yesterday, Tommy. So that's never happened before, never. Civil rights marchers and police marching together for the same cause. Never happened before. You know, and insurrection, January the 6th. Watching that, and then watching the powers that be, all 535 running, 435 in the House, 200, I'm sorry, in the Senate. And then half of them say, oh, it wasn't any big deal. Then why were you running, and why were cops being killed, or why you call in National Guard? Okay?
And we thought we had problems in Danville.
Some people from Danville, my understanding, were there. Okay? They're right to be, but were there. So when you look at things like that, the Voting Rights Act, Jesus Christ, that's how I got elected, okay? Now they're trying to change the rules on that for political kind of stuff. So I won't say it's one step up and two steps back, but I will say we have more steps to make. And I think we'll be surprised, and I'll end with this. For those of us, or those who have the courage to stand in the gap, knowing you may or may not go back home, it's going to encourage some other folks. I got to go out there and help. I'll stop right there.
That is a very good point you made. Very good. Yes, we live in difficult times. We continue to live in difficult times, right?
But I still love everybody, even though I'm married.
I love it.
Any other comments after that one?
That was, I think,
You ain't
that
ready.
you, well, of course,
You ain't ready.
I like to stir the pot.
And we just have to do what the word said do. We have to press towards the mark of the high calling.
All right, now. All right.
And if we do that, we have to walk. We have to walk by faith.
Well.
That's what we have to.
Yes,
walk
sir.
by.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And we can't remember those. That's a lot of new songs
Yes, sir.
that are
Yes,
out
sir.
there. But those old songs that brought us
Boy, I know.
this far, we can't forget that.
All right.
And if we get up in the morning and hum one of those hymns, you can make it throughout the day. And we can push this community forward like we're doing now. We can do it.
I'm going to ask Gail Elsery to explain what was going on when I was saying, well, yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. Gail, explain what that meant.
I have no idea what that means, other than you're attempting to,
You know what that
mimic the black church.
Oh, you know what that meant?
But I don't take that very
It
lightly.
was okay, and it was giving you
I don't know what it means.
directions.
In the black church, when the preacher was preaching,
Preach.
and the folks agreed with the preacher,
Yes.
they were saying, yes, sir. Well, that's what I was doing. I was agreeing with
You
you.
was agreeing, right.
I didn't argue that.
I know you know
said-
with me. I know you know how close I am. I
I said it's
understand.
part of it, but you know.
Hey, Councilman
Take it
Hood,
very
I'm just
lightly.
being me, man, okay? I'm just being me.
But it's so much, just like people, it's just like she was saying, You have to let the kids know that a lot of the churches was built, right, like the church next door. It's a balcony. What was the balcony built for? It was to separate people. You could go, but you have to sit in the balcony. Never understood that, just like I said, when the balcony was better seats in the movies.
I never knew that that was why balconies were built. I do know that
Yeah.
among the Methodist Church, they were gracious in that African Americans were allowed to worship in those balcony areas, and that was a means of separation, but I thought it was also an avenue to give people the opportunity to worship. But I would not think that a balcony in a church was designed to separate people.
Oh, yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes, it was.
I didn't know that.
It was because
Movie theaters were like that too.
even if you worked, if my grandmother worked for Miss Ann who lives in Forest Hills, she could go with Miss Ann to church, but she couldn't sit next to Miss Ann. She had to go to the balcony.
I'm aware of that, but again, I didn't know that the balconies were originally built in churches for that.
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I've learned something today
Yes.
too then.
And then when they sang the song, Way in the Water, what did that mean?
Well, Wade in the Water was a song, I think, from the African American culture that was a message to indicate that go to the water for escape.
Right.
Yeah,
Walk.
when it was safe and when it was.
Yes, it was
Yeah.
safe. Walk towards the river. It was safer. That
Talking about
way.
what the steal away mean.
Tell me.
That meant I ain't got long to stay here, you know?
Right.
That
we
meant
go.
tonight we're gonna meet at such and such place and we're leaving, you know, like the Underground Railroad.
Yeah,
You know,
Harold
so
Tubman.
they're like, oh, the people down there on spirit singing spiritual song. Yes, we have. It was a code song.
They
There
were
was a message
code.
in that song. Meet me here at such and such
Yeah.
time. We're gonna steal away. Okay,
Yeah.
that was a code word. That's what we had to, you know.
Right.
That's what we had to do.
Yeah.
Certain
here we get-
songs sung at certain times triggered the message. If they were
Yeah.
singing still away, you knew somebody was leaving.
Yeah.
Somebody was on their way out.
Right.
And meet Harriet Tubman.
Way in the water,
Yeah, on
you
that
knew
Underground
you needed to
Railroad.
get somebody safely there.
Right,
They had their purposes.
that's right.
So here art plays a role once again, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think I am going to wrap us up so that we can have some questions from the audience. But I do want to thank every single person on this panel for your great contributions and your great voices for this year and for the future. And please let people know to contact me so that we can set the stage for next year. And I would love to reach out to everybody on this panel and bring you in to choose the next people as a committee. But thank you so much for coming today and for your great contribution to this discussion.
Enjoyed being here.
And we all know that February is Black History Month. But I like everybody to know that Black History is 365 days a year.
That's true.
It is, you recognize it, but it is 365 a year. And we can all choose something in every month that has something to deal with Black history.
And please let people know that we have residencies and that they can definitely apply through our website to our residency program. It comes with a stipend, and it can be anything from poetry to film to a art workshop, anything that is creative and that engages the community. That is the stipulation. And yes, let's celebrate Black history every month of the year. Thank you.
May I make a comment? I have a great love for Karen and a tremendous relationship, which is my pleasure, I'll assure you. I'm the president of the Arts Council for Caswell County. And one of my hopes and dreams upon taking this chair was that I could create programs for Black youth, which are terribly overlooked and not at all acknowledged in our programs. Karen has brought a lot to my attention in that, and I think she will support anything that we work toward in that area. I depend on her heavily to help me instrument that goal. Thank you for letting me be here today, and I've learned so much that I think will work in our favor. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue.
You are touching a lot of people.
Thank
You
you.
really are.
And without more to do, I want to open the floor to questions for our panelists. Anybody else have questions?
I don't have a question, but I just want to say thank you for the stories, because not being from Danville, Virginia, I love hearing the intimate stories of this place and the families and the people that I live with now, because this is my home forever. As far as I know, I'm planning on dying in Danville. I'm not moving nowhere else, so this is my home. I've tried to learn as much as I can about the place and the people where I live. I just want to say thank you for sharing the stories, and you had mentioned that you want to be a bridge, both of you. I want to be, you know, in the old days when I was a kid, the elevator had an elevator operator. Somebody who would, you say, I want to go to floor 2, they press the button. I want to go to 12, they press the button for you. I want to be the bridge worker. I want to be the one who's helping people not be scared to step on that bridge, to come back and forth together, because it's safe. It's safe now to do so. So that's my goal here, making Danville smile.
Am I correct that your husband's on the school board?
Yes, he is.
Then you are that bridge. You are that bridge.
That's very good.
Thank you, guys.
Excuse me, I just want to make a comment, also, first to commend this event. It's one of the best places I could be today. And I consider each one of you all trailblazers. And I humbly mean that. And the comment that I was just thinking about, how listening to you all and telling the story have influenced me to do even more just by being here today. I look at Danville as one big family that just don't eat dinner at the same time.
Yeah.
And you know, back in the day, we used to all eat around the same time. We had to come in from outside to eat at the same time. We just don't have to do that now. When we're talking about closing the gaps and creating bridges to go across, I look at it and it's almost like, to me, it's like a new father who's trying to figure out how to articulate to their child the ways of the world. Because whether he had got it in a certain sense, now he's able to pass it along. So he's new to it. So what's happening with Danville is now Danville are having these conversations that we've been kind of walking on eggshells with. Now we're closing this in. So it's just like a new father just said, okay, I want to talk to my child about life. But now I got to get comfortable and more familiar to be able to articulate it with. So I thank you all again. I'm excited. I'm ready to hit, go knock on doors now. These are the programs that we have going on. You know, I think Danville is sizable. It may not be a big city, but it has a gigantic heart.
Yes, it
and the more we
does.
push and the more we close that gap, I just see it. It's just wonderful. That's just my spiel. I just had to say it. And just thank you all again for everything.
Thank you, Councilman.
Thank you.
One question. My name is Sylvester Swanson. I'm from New Jersey, though my parents are from Pennsylvania County. But I've since I've been here about 5 or 6 years, I've always heard about Bloody Monday and Danville in 1963. And all the heroes of that moment. Can we talk about some of the non-heroes, of Black people that were snitches, informants, disruptors, or saboteurs, or provocateurs, or whatever you want to call them? How they got identified, what you did to counteract what they were trying to do, or, you know, that kind of stuff. Instead of talking about the girls, let's talk about the struggle.
They should be saying, they should be named as well as the heroes.
Well, there were some, there were snitches, that worked under, what was the Attorney General under Kennedy,
His brother?
no, during Martin Luther King days, they had a few people would go back to him. The young guy who was a cross-dresser.
You talking about Hoover?
Hoover,
Okay.
Hoover.
Well, I'm talking about specifically to Danville.
Oh, you're talking about to Danville.
Well, we can definitely discuss that, as we identify that.
Yeah,
I think fear changes people.
Yeah.
And it's like when soldiers go into a battle scene, some of them are able to function fine with the training that they had, and some of them just lose it and are embarrassed when they do. But, we never know until we're in battle or we're in a problem area, how are we going to respond ourselves? And I think we have to allow people to redeem themselves, because fear can play such a big part of making us do things that we don't want to do.
yeah.
Or don't,
And then, like you said, and then fear will also cause you not to say a whole lot of things. So, just in me trying to interview people about history, and especially painful history. I mean, if it hurts, then why would you want to discuss it? Why would you want to talk about it if it's that painful? So it's not as though, these are unsung heroes, because they are unsung heroes. But if Sherman thought that everything that he had gone through with the beatings and, his parents, or even being embarrassed by it, people are not forthcoming with wanting to talk about it. So, those are the people that are very interesting to talk to, but they're also the most challenging to interview. They're the most challenging to talk to because, again, who wants to talk about their own personal pain? And it's a matter of me as an interviewer making the interviewee comfortable enough to talk to me to draw that out. And that takes time. That takes time. You have to build the relationship with that individual or individuals. And sometimes you have the time to do it, and sometimes you don't.
Are you related to the Swansons that were from Swansonville off of South Main Street? That was a section in Danville called Swansonville. That was a part of Brucetown.
If you go back far enough, I'm related to everybody in this. I think the 1800s is where we tie into.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
The High Street Baptist Church that.
High Street was a lot of Swansons were members.
Yeah, well, that wing is named after.
Julian Swanson and his brothers and the whole Darrell, they developed Swansonville.
Well, Swansonville was the governor. Oh, well, okay, Swansonville and Danville. There's a Swansonville also in Pennsylvania County.
Right.
Yeah.
Danville, I think Julian and Gregory's grandfather or great-grandfather was probably tied into something like that.
Okay.
Yeah, one Swanson was the perfect court in Pennsylvania County.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's true.
Well, I'll tell you that this, I didn't know what to expect when I came, even though you told me what to expect, you know. I don't know, I just appreciate the opportunity to tell my truth, put it that way, okay? To tell my truth. I'm just thankful that my parents raised me to just love myself, you know? To be comfortable with myself and not to hate. Oh, I can dislike all I want to, but not hate. So, you know, forgive my honesty, I like me.
I love me. And you all, we have one of the best museum directors here in the world. Y'all, let's get Elsa B a hand.
Well, let's give the panel a hand, and I know that Karen is left. We also have some flowers for people, and I've got some other things for people. So don't leave. Go get yourself something to drink. Go get yourself something to eat. And don't leave immediately. Thank you so much to everybody for being here.
Thank you.